The very best time of the year is at the end of August. And that's not because of the fact that the weather cools down here in Northern California. It's not because Christmas and Thanksgiving and the holidays are, right around the corner. No, it's actually because of the fact that preseason and training camp are coming to an end. And the first week of college football is essentially right around the corner. And we're actually here, right? Tomorrow is the very, very first day of college football, week zero, as they call it. We're going to get 4 games tomorrow, and we're going to talk about those 4 games. With one game specifically that has a ton of NFL players, or I should say future NFL players, that is Florida State, Georgia Tech. We're going to get into that here in a second. Before we get into it, I want to talk about this channel a little bit. We are now pivoting this channel specifically into, college football. We'll talk about the NFL draft, which we mostly only have done NFL draft on this channel, but we're going to be getting away from only doing NFL draft to college football. If you guys don't know this, I've officially taken a job with the Hula Bowl as a scout, where I'll be analyzing specifically offensive line and defensive linemen. And I've already started. I'm 24 guys in over the past 2 weeks. These are essentially preseason grades. So, some of these grades will fluctuate, but of the 24, the guy that has the fourth highest grade right now for me actually is on Georgia Tech. He's a right tackle starting for Georgia Tech. Out of a possible grade of 7, he has a 5.25, which is really, really, really high. His name is Jordan Williams. We're going to get into that here in a second when we get into the preview. But if you guys are into college football, if you guys enjoy talking college football, if you guys enjoy the draft process, subscribe, man, to this channel, because we're going to be talking all things college football. I do hope to get on a schedule where I can post at least 3 videos a week. I think that's kind of where my workflow will allow me to be at. You guys know I have 2 other channels. I have a channel where I cover the Las Vegas Raiders. I have a second channel called the Football Scout as well. And this channel here will be mostly talking head videos the way we're talking now. And we'll be talking about a lot of the news that's kind of trending in college football. So let's get into this, man. I'm excited for this one, man. Week 0 of college football. Always the best time of the year. In this first week, we actually got some good games. Now, we got Florida State going to Georgia Tech. And I think there's some upside right there for Georgia Tech to potentially win and shock Florida State, right? I think they're the underdogs right now, but Georgia Tech has some upside. We're going to get into that here in a second. Then you got Montana State at New Mexico. You got SMU at Nevada. And then you got Delaware State at Hawaii. Those other 3 games, probably isn't going to get a lot of people tuned in. There are some NFL caliber players on those teams as well, but it's really going to be that Florida State at Georgia Tech that's going to have majority of the NFL talent. And we're going to start right away with probably the best player in that game is going to be a Florida State defensive lineman. His name is Patrick Payton. He's a potential top 15 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. This guy's an absolute stud, man. I didn't watch his tape, right? I didn't go into this game saying I'm about to watch this kid, Patrick Payton. I went into that game to watch Jared Verse. He also went into the draft last year as a first-round pick. I went into this game to watch Verse, and I was like, damn, who the hell is this other kid that's consistently flashing? And Payton had 7 sacks. He had 14 and a half tackles in this past season. 6'5", 250. The guy has some good pass rush technique. He has some upside. He's long. He's lengthy. He's a prototypical defensive end. He's going to be in the NFL. I think he'll be a first-round pick. He's the guy to really watch. And the interesting thing with Payton is he played a lot as a left defensive end, right? So what that means is he lined up over the right tackle a lot. Now, talking about Georgia Tech has a right tackle right now that I'm very, very high on. It is early on in the process, so we'll see kind of how this really pans out. But the guy that I'm talking about, his name is Jordan Williams for Georgia Tech. Now, one of the things we have to realize is coaching is always the most important factor into guys being able to go from college football into the NFL. It's just what it is, right? You go to Oklahoma, Bo Bedenbo takes the job at Oklahoma as the offensive line coach. Creed Humphrey, Tyler Guyton, not Jawan Taylor, but the other guy that went to the Jaguars. You get a lot of NFL players that are not coming out of Oklahoma. Then you can look at coaches in college. For example, West Virginia hired a really, really good coach in Matt Moore. Last year, you had Zach Frazier. This year, you're going to get arguably the best tackle coming out in Wyatt Milliam out of West Virginia. So coaching matters, and that's the interesting thing with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has this coach who's now technically their head coach. He was an interim coach last year. He became their head coach this year. Prior to being their head coach, he was their offensive line coach. Prior to being an offensive line coach with Georgia Tech, he was an offensive line coach with Alabama. And when he was at Alabama, these guys produced some monsters, right? He was there for like 4 years. He produced guys like Jonah Williams, Jedrick Wills, Landon Dickerson, Cam Robinson, Lester Cotton, Alex Leatherwood. Not all of these guys have worked out, but some of those guys are phenomenal players, and he helped kind of mold these guys into good players ready for the NFL, right? Some all pro caliber players in Jedrick Willis as well as Landon Dickerson. So Brent Key, who is now the head coach of the Georgia Tech, has helped produce these guys that are in the NFL. So to me, Jordan Williams of Georgia Tech, maybe he got coached a little bit by this guy. Now, Williams is in his final year in college, right? I think he might be a fourth-year player. He might be a fifth-year player. Final year in college. This is the year where he has to show out. But his tape last year was really good as well. So what we're going to actually get to see is we're going to get to see Patrick Payton, arguably a first-round pick, going up against Jordan Williams. Now, Williams, he could raise his stock as a top 2 to 3 round guy if he has a great game against Patrick Payton. Right now, he's not on a lot of people's radar, and I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about him. And there's also a chance he's just not good, right? We'll see if that actually ends up happening. Like, Patrick Payton may just crush this guy, right? But Jordan Williams looks good to me, so those are two of the guys that I'll kind of be watching. Florida State does have some other guys as well. Joshua Farmer is a defensive tackle. They have Marvin Jones Jr., who was with Georgia last year. He transferred over to Florida State. And then Florida State also has some good offensive linemen. They got Darius Washington, who's played left tackle, right tackle, and center. And Darius Washington's one of the highest graded players on Pro Football Focus. And I'm not huge on Pro Football Focus, but I do acknowledge that they do some good work over there. And I do acknowledge that, if you're going to be one of the highest graded players, you got to have some technique elements. You have to be winning your reps, right? You're not going to get like a 90 grade and you giving up like 12 sacks, right? It's not going to happen. And when you put his tape on, he definitely looks good. Now, I think there is some potential for an upset here, specifically because I think Florida State right now being ranked as the 10th best school, or I should say they're ranked as number 10 on the power rankings. That's part of that is because of what they kind of did last year. And remember, they lost some guys, right? Jared Verse went to the NFL. They also lost the other guy that was a defensive tackle. He also went to the NFL. They lost some weapons on the offensive side, right? They lost Keon Coleman. They lost Johnny Wilson. They lost Keon Coleman. So they've lost some guys to the NFL, right? They lost some defensive linemen to the NFL. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, this is the best team they're going to be, right? This year, their quarterback is going into his redshirt junior year, 4th year in college. Last year, this quarterback had 37 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. Their offensive line is mostly the same guys, and they've added a couple of pieces. So it's going to be an interesting year for sure this year, right? I'm excited for this one game. But this isn't the only game that has actual NFL players. The other games do have some guys to kind of keep an eye on. And here's the thing, right? Next week, we're going to have 4 games this week. We'll have the tape presented by the Hula Bulls, so shout out to them. We're going to have the tape, and next week we're going to actually analyze some of these guys, right? So we'll watch Jordan Williams going up against Patrick Payton, right? We'll actually see that matchup. We'll actually analyze that tape. More than that, we'll get to see guys like from Montana State. It's not FBS, it's actually FCS schools. You got Montana State, New Mexico. You got a guy coming out at tackle, Marcus Wehr, who was very, very good last year. Now, some people are going to say Montana State, New Mexico, who cares? These teams, do they actually produce talent? They do produce NFL talent, believe it or not. The guys might not come directly from Montana State. They transfer, right? They'll transfer. So, like, for example, there's a really, really good guard. This guy's on my radar. Omar Agbedian. He was at Montana State last year, and he transferred to Baylor. So, he's a guy that has a potential to make it in the NFL. Then you got a guy from New Mexico named J.C. Davis that is going to Illinois. And the guy was a stud last year at New Mexico. So, we'll see, right? There's guys that do make it in the NFL. They might not play for those two schools specifically. But you got Marcus Wehr, who's a senior, 6'4", very explosive, above average movement and technique. He's a guy to kind of keep an eye on from Montana State. You also got one other guy from Montana State named Brody Grebe, who had 12 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. The guy has pass rush upside. He probably won't stay at Montana State after this year. I think he'll probably transfer to a different school. I think he might have some NFL upside as well. So really just 2 guys coming out, both from Montana State. Marcus Weir and Brody Grebe, two guys to kind of keep an eye on. SMU at Nevada, you got a couple of interesting players. So SMU does have some guys that are good on the offensive line that have transferred. There's one guy that kind of stuck around at MSU. His name is Logan Parr. I think he'll actually end up coming out this year. He's their starting left guard. He's a guy to kind of keep an eye on as well. These games might not actually mean a lot, right? Because, let's be honest, SMU is not going to win the national championship, nor is Nevada, nor is Montana State, nor is New Mexico, or Delaware State, or Hawaii. But there are guys that will play in the NFL, right? And I might not tune into those games to watch, the games live, but I will definitely watch the tape after the fact. Because it's important to analyze all these different guys, let's just be honest. Some of these guys will be 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. And I know a lot of people might not care about that, but some of them might not, right? Remember, Austin Booker, rookie defensive end for the Chicago Bears, 5th round pick. I'm telling you guys right now, this is an early prediction, but Austin Booker is going to be one of the best defensive ends in the NFL. Austin Booker has literally top 10, maybe even top 5 potential within the next 2 years. And I can almost guarantee you guys that. And Austin Booker went to Kansas, and people say, who cares about Kansas, right? It's like SMU, right? But there's guys that are going to be good football players that are at these lower level schools. And we're talking about these guys because these are the guys you want to kind of keep an eye on as we go into this next portion of the draft process, essentially, right? Last year's draft is over, but we got a lot of guys that flash. We have a lot of notes with guys to kind of keep an eye on. Going into this year, these guys can either, climb the draft board or they end up falling. And then you got a guy at SMU in Logan Parr who could be really, really good. We'll see what ends up happening. Another thing to just kind of know is just something random I want to throw out there. SMU is ranked as one of the best secondaries in college football. Now, I don't know if I don't know what that means. I don't know if there's a coach there that's doing something unique, but they are ranked as one of the best secondaries. So that's something to just kind of keep an eye on. SMU, we'll see what ends up happening, right? It'll be interesting. You got Delaware State at Hawaii. There's actually 2 guys for Hawaii that have one guy specifically has real NFL upside. He's the starting right tackle of Hawaii. His name is Luke Felix-Fualalo. I think that's how you say his name, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. 6'8", 310 pounds. The dude is a monster, man. The way he moves for being 6'8", I think there's a chance this guy ends up going in the top 2 rounds. He only has played football for a total of 5 years. This will actually be his 5th year. So he's played for a total of 4 years. And he went to Mater Dei. He's from Australia. He hasn't played football that long, but he's 6'8", 310. He moves really, really well. And to me, this is the guy to really keep an eye on that could definitely rise up the boards. This NFL draft that's coming up, people don't realize this, right? And I think you realize this usually 3 or 4 years after the fact. Last year and even this year, the draft has been producing a lot of really good starting caliber players, and a lot of them have been coming out in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And the reason why is because of the transfer portal. SMU might have more money than some of the Power 5 conference, or some of the if you're a top 25 team, SMU might have more money, and they might not be ranked as a top 25 team. So essentially, right, the transfer portal and being able to get that NIL money has changed college football a little bit. So you got guys that are going to Hawaii that will probably be in the NFL. Got guys going to Kansas that are going to become top 10 defensive ends. So Luke Felix-Fualalo, right tackle, 6'8", 310. He's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. Moves really well for that size. So he's a guy that I'm definitely going to be coming back to next week to really analyze and see what this guy kind of had. The other guy to keep an eye on is also from Hawaii. He's an edge rusher. He had 4 sacks on 150 snaps last year. His name's Ezra Evam Malo, 6'2", 260. Not huge. He's on the smaller side. He's a defensive end. It's another guy to kind of keep an eye on, but I'm excited, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This channel will now be solely focused on college content. It'll be solely focused on, kind of what kind of what happens with the scouting side of things and things that I kind of learn. And, there's going to be players that I'm going to come across that I'm going to bring up to you guys. Hey, check this random, guy out from Delaware State who's an insane pass rusher or whatever it might be, So we'll see. It'll be a fun thing to do. The Football Scout channel, obviously I have it. I love football, love the NFL, but my passion is college football, right? Offensive line, defensive line, college football. That is a true passion of mine. So I'm excited for this one, man. I hope you guys join me for this journey. Enjoy this weekend, man. We got college football. The Florida State Georgia Tech game is going to be on at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure you guys check that one out. It's early in the morning. Early for some people, not early for others. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I will see you guys next time with another video.